Hey, welcome to this discussion about the Caduceus program. I'm Willa Kaiser, the director. And this evening, we're just going to go a little bit into the Caduceus program, what it's like to be in the program, what it's like to practice homeopathy, and just possibly answer some of the questions you might have. If you don't know much about homeopathy, you can go to the front page of our website, homeopathytraining.org, and there are some nice introductions which will tell you some of the principles of homeopathy. So what we're going to focus on tonight is talking about the actual program. And I've invited a few students and graduates, so welcome to everyone who's here. I wanted to start by talking with Chris. Chris is a current student in Module 3, and she is going through the program. And she's also our representative to the North American Society of Homeopaths, or NASH, our student rep. So thank you for joining us, Chris. If you can thanks for unmuting yourself too. So I just wanted to ask you, what was your experience when you first started Caduceus? How did it evolve? If you were going to explain to somebody who's a new student, you know, what happens once you enroll in Caduceus and what it's like to, you know, study your first few sessions and things like that. If you could just tell me a little bit about that.
Well, part of getting started was just kind of getting into working out your own system of how you're going to study, of watching the training, and sort of setting out, once you get grounded in how you're going to study, you know, how you're going to do your organ-on study questions, work through the workbook and listen to the videos, taking notes. That's kind of that was the biggest thing for me when I first started. And, you know, you kind of get, it's not hard to kind of work out your own system. And you kind of just basically tweak it as you go along. If something's working and not working so well, then you can just change it. But basically, it's just kind of setting that foundation for study habits at first, I think.
Great, thank you. So for those who don't know, basically the Caduceus program, what arrives when you enroll in the program are some workbooks and some audio recordings. And the audio recordings are from actual classes. And what you do is you sit down as if you were in a class and listen to audio recordings and follow along in the workbooks. And the studies are divided into different sections, which have to do with learning how to use the repertory, learning organon, learning the remedies, which are materia medica, and what's the fourth? Therapeutics, dealing with actual different kinds of sicknesses or illnesses. And in the first module, it's about acute prescribing. So for many adult learners, as Chris is mentioning, the first thing that you're dealing with here is learning your own creating your own study habits and figuring out what kind of a learner you are and how to do it. So does that kind of sum it up, Chris, in terms of how things were for you in the first module?
Okay. Yes, and then studying also working out a system for how you're studying the remedies and learning the remedies very closely as well.
Great. And what did you find in terms of support in the program as you were going through it? Can you tell us a little bit about the study groups and the different ways that you connected with other people as you were studying?
Yes, I found it's really gotten better. You know, at first, you know, there was the Yahoo group, which is great and very supportive and good to get your questions answered. But then the addition of the study groups that we do, we have a Module 1 study group and then a Module 2 and 3 study group, and those go every other week. So those have been amazing just in terms of getting questions answered, having discussions, and also connecting and getting that sense of community with the other students as well. So yes, and then of course we have the monthly meetings as well. So all of that is just a great supplement to the independent study that we're doing in the program.
Okay, great. And were you able to get to know some of the other students who were sort of like your peers, or in in uh, in at similar levels of study? Because the program is also self-paced, so some people are kind of zooming really fast, and some people are more taking their time. Did you find that was valuable to get to know some of the other students?
Absolutely. The other students are brilliant. So very insightful just to get, learn how they kind of go through their own process. And it's just all it's just all a great big learning experience, and the whole thing together. I really enjoy the program. Love it a lot.
Great. Okay. Anything else you want to tell us about being a student up till now in Module 3? Any advice you'd have for somebody who was considering enrolling?
The only, I don't think so. I think that pretty much covers it. I would just say that you do have to be diligent in making sure that you set good study habits, and life gets in the way, of course, but because the program is self-paced, there's not, if somebody would need outside motivation, that would be hard for them, because you don't have somebody telling you need to do this by this time.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that's kind of the difference, and that makes it a little harder in some ways, and means that it's up to every individual to decide when to study and when to get things done. On the other hand, I've seen lots of students, they'll have babies and come back in a year or two, or they'll take summer off because their kids are in school. And that kind of flexibility is helpful from that point of view, but it also is a challenge from another point of view, that you're, needing to really kind of create your own schedule, kind of like being self-employed, which is good practice for being a homeopath, actually, because, which brings us kind of to our next topic. Hart, welcome. Hart is a graduate of the Caduceus program and is also one of our instructors. He's a brilliant homeopath in practice, and he's also created some advanced modules for us, which I'd like him to tell us about. So where should we start, Hart? What would you like to start with in those topics?
That's a good question. Maybe just with the first module that we did a few years back, the first extra module that we did was case analysis, and the idea there is that there are a lot of different ways to analyze a case in homeopathy, and if you can choose a good analysis style that matches the case that you're taking, then that will increase your chances of success, give you a better list of remedies to consider for someone. It's just kind of, I think the way I viewed it was sort of a way of building on all of the really great Organon foundation that Willa lays in the first, would it be 4 modules, Willa?
Five.
Well, they're 5, I understand, but I don't recall if we were still doing Organon in the 5th.
That's a good question. We've pretty much finished reading the Organon in module 3, I believe.
Okay.
Is that right, Marianne?
Module 4.
Oh, is it module 4? Okay. Yeah, you guys remember better than me. Sorry.
Yeah, up in the 280s and 290s on the aphorisms, right?
Or in module 4. Okay.
Yeah. So when I graduated from Caduceus, I tried out a lot of the, how would one say, trendy, perhaps, analysis styles that are out there and prescribing styles that are out there. And the more I did that, the more I really came back to the Organon and came back to classical homeopathy. And so some of those analysis styles are very interesting and maybe have a little bit to offer. And so it's good to know, excuse me, when you might use something like that. And but it's also good to have a really good grounding in just nice, basic, what we would call characteristics of a patient, the totality of the characteristics of a patient, and analyzing a case well that way. Should I mention Module 7?
Sure. So this is just to explain. So modules 1 through 5 were modules that I developed back in the 90s, actually, bringing a group of students through the program. After having taught for several years, I decided to start recording things. And that's how this developed into a distance learning program. And then when Hart graduated and was in practice for a while, I invited him to create a new module, Module 6, which is what he was just describing, the case analysis, which has just been brilliant. And I think Marianne can tell you a little bit about her experiences when we get to Marianne on this. Now Hart is now creating a new module. So yeah, please go ahead. Tell us about it, Hart.
Module 7 will be case management, which is the most complex and involved part of treating people long term. It's not just finding a good remedy for somebody, but it's knowing what to do once they respond to that remedy. Did they respond well? Did they respond partially? Did they not respond at all? Did they respond poorly? And where do you go from there? And then how do you shepherd a case through from whatever that response was or wasn't to to completion and getting that person as well as you possibly can. I'm still studying frantically, getting ready.
Great.
Reviewing all the old case management stuff, and it's really good. It's good practice for me, because I tend to work with very complex cases, allergies, and people with a lot of medical interventions, and so case management is a very useful thing in those cases.
Right. Yes. It's what it comes down to. Wonderful. So tell us a little bit about your practice. You just mentioned about that you tend to have complicated cases. Can you just tell us a little bit more about your practice so people get a sense of what it's like to be in practice?
Because I was an allergic kid, I thought that would be a great idea to go into allergies. Anybody who works with allergies knows that they're a little complex. Often allergies are, come into somebody's life after their immune system has been compromised in a few different ways. And so I started working with allergies in general, I would say, and general cases as well, but sort of focused in on kids with eczema, which is a really rewarding way to go. I've really enjoyed it, but it is tough. There's definitely a lot of response to a remedy, and you get to a certain point and then you need to do something else, and then maybe there's another remedy, or maybe the original remedy finishes it off. But it's definitely a lot of case management in there. I have a little small private practice here in Durham, North Carolina. See people 4 days a week, and I don't know what else to add on that point.
Okay.
It's very rewarding. I like my patient days.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. What are the skills that you need besides learning homeopathy to open up your own practice? Because I think this is the part that people kind of need to think about as they're considering whether they're going to be a homeopath. It's not like somebody's going to go out and give you a job and then you get a salary. It's really a self-employment kind of situation.
If only.
Mm-hmm.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So it's one of the things that I would recommend. For me personally, the skills that I need as a homeopath are being a good interviewer and a good listener, which Willa's teachings are incredible on that front. Of course, having a good basis in homeopathy and being able to apply that to cases. The thing that I would say that I was lacking big time when I started my practice was, some kind of feeling for customer service. I think that's a really important factor. And just that sort of, the customer is not always right, but a lot of times you can make them think they are, even when they're not, and that's really helpful. And it's really that sort of patience with people is definitely something that I've been working on a lot. And what other skills? Certainly, it would be nice. It would have been nice had I had just a simple small business class before I started up. I experimented with advertising over the years and have sort of gotten to the point where I don't do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I've never found it super helpful, but there are a lot of little things. There's a lot of little tools, good online tools, a lot of good little business tools, networking, that kind of stuff that really does help. And getting to know area practitioners, which I know Willa has talked about a lot with other students in Caduceus. Getting to know area practitioners is a really super useful thing. I got, at least in my early days, I got a lot of referrals from acupuncturists and chiropractors, and now I get most of my referrals from other patients. But
Great.
yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Hart. I think that's really helpful for people to kind of get an idea, because if you do go through the program and get those skills you need as a homeopath, also figuring out how to run a small business of your own is a piece of it. So thanks a lot. Thank you, Hart. And Marianne. Marianne is an advanced student in our program, and she's also been involved in homeopathy for quite a while, around maybe almost as long as I have. Marianne, we were talking on another call, so I think you've kind of seen a lot of trends going on in different ways and seeing different things going on in the homeopathic community. What can you tell us about what you find kind of unique about the Caduceus program?
I have been in homeopathy 25 years. Can you hear me?
Yes, just barely. Maybe sit a little closer to your computer. Thank you.
A little closer for you. How's that?
That's good.
Okay. I have attended other schools. I have been in homeopathy. I'm on the East Coast. I'm in the New Jersey area. So I've taken classes at many of the New York schools that have come and gone over the years, and never quite getting a full depth and breadth of education that one needs to start a practice. So I was very happy to find your school when I did, and I have been delighted because, first of all, Module 1 is all about acute homeopathy, and nobody teaches an entire, 6 months on just acute case taking, case analysis, philosophy, organon, how to deal with patients, how to follow the case. That's very unique and unusual about your school. So I was very grateful to be a part of that. The other modules were really great because of the philosophy and just all the materia medica study. But I have to say, once I took Module 6 on case analysis that Hart had done, that's when my confidence in that I could start a practice, that I can actually go out and do this, because it pulled together Modules 1 through 5 and went right back into full circle into case analysis. Taking everything I had learned, materia medica, philosophy, and it just kind of gelled together. I am looking forward to case management, Module 7. the advantage of the school, especially for me, I've been in my own work life and I've been able to take it at my own pace, which I'm very grateful for. The other thing is, I've had situations where I'm turned into a caretaker for 2 to 3 years, and I needed to step outside of the school, and you were gracious enough to give me that opportunity and then welcome me back in, and I'm grateful for that. I think the fact that it's a classical Hahnemannian school, we do not go off into other types of the latest and greatest fads that are out there in homeopathy. We stick with a classical Hahnemannian foundation. And without that, you can't practice because you're just never going to understand it. So, overall, I've been very happy with it. And like I said, I've been to many different schools and I've learned a lot and I'm grateful for them. But in terms of a school from beginning to end, this has been my favorite. So I'm very grateful to be a part of it.
Okay, thank you. It's interesting because both you and Hart said something that I feel very strongly about and that I've heard from long-term graduates over and over again, which is, really learning and studying the organon and practicing according to its principles is what really works. Robin Gladstone, who was one of our first distance learning graduates back in the 90s, she recently went to a advanced seminar in India with Dr. Farooq Master, who is a very Hahnemannian practitioner also. And when she came back, I interviewed her, and she was just so passionate about how important that was. And she's had a successful practice in both Santa Cruz, California, and then now she's up, actually she's back in India, but she was practicing up in Canada for a while, but she also feels the same way, and many graduates do. So, some people do go on to other forms of case analysis or that kind of thing, study other things, but in general, most people find that basic foundation in the organon and in studying materia medica and learning how to use the repertory, those kinds of basic skills are what they really rely on in their practice when they are actually in practice. So thank you. We have a few prospective students on the call. Suba, you were here first, so I'm going to actually try unmuting you if I can. Let me get down here to the participants here. Suba, did you have any questions for us? Whoops, you just muted yourself again. Let me just, yeah, okay, there you are. Let's see, are you unmuted? Yes. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi, Villa. Welcome. Thank you for sending the invitation. Actually, I thought like learning homeopathy because my father used to do, even now also he is doing practice in India as a homeo practitioner. So after coming to US, one day I thought like just, okay, my father is teaching me in future how I teach my kids. Then I got that thought. Then I searched here and I found the institute, this homeopathy institute, and I read like your introduction classes. Online, I just hear those recordings. After hearing, I felt okay. However, my father will say the same. Whatever my father will say, how to treat a patient, in the same thing I heard from your recordings. Then immediately I called you, and I registered immediately. But once I registered, I never able to complete even my first module also so far. It is 4 years. I never started.
I thought your name sounded familiar. Okay, well, I hope this call inspires you to get going on your studies. Thanks for joining.
Yeah. After 4 years, again, like last week, I have seen your email. I thought, okay, at least this summer, at least I should start completing at least first module. I registered like anxiously 2 modules I want to complete as soon as possible, but I never able to start even if I have a first module also so far.
Okay.
So I just thought like if I attend this class, maybe I will get some inspiration. Again, I will start.
Okay, well, hopefully you found that inspiration. Thank you. Diana, welcome. I see you're not sending any video, but you're here. Did you have any questions? I'm not even sure if you're sending audio, or maybe that's you with a 970. Are you there, Diana? Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Hi. Yes. Hi.
Sorry, I did a call in first before I hooked up the video.
I'm
doing fine. I don't think I have any questions, but except maybe that it's online. I missed the beginning of the thing.
Basically, what we do is the first 5 modules are workbooks and audio files that we send to you. And then module 6 and I guess 7 will be, how do you send them? Are those on flash drives, Hart, that you send them on?
Flash drives, Dropbox. We provide Dropbox files for people so you can download them. And it's video, so it's video with audio, and it's not video of me talking. It's actual PowerPoints with, stuff on the screen. So it's not, you don't have to look at me the whole time.
That's why actually originally I had done videos back in the 90s, but they were just videos of me sitting in a chair. You probably went through it at that point, Hart, right?
I think I was one of the first students who didn't.
Yeah, and
because
then
I would hear stories of the video of you, but all I got was the audio.
Right, and the video was just me sitting there, because it wasn't very sophisticated. I just had a video camera there, so
Yeah.
it was for the sort of PowerPoint days. But so what I converted that all to audio files. So you have the audio where you're listening, and then you have the workbook that you follow along in. So there is a visual component. But it's not online, and the advantage of that is you don't have to be on Wi-Fi and be staring at your screen while you're studying. And if you already are doing screen stuff at work, or watch other things or TV or whatever, I think we all spend too much time on these electronic devices, and so you won't have to actually be on an electronic device. You can listen and then look at the workbook. So you don't have to always be on an electronic device for the first 5 modules. So, yeah.
Can I ask you about the workbook? I've had trouble trying to memorize lists, 20 things for one remedy. Is it more through story, or how does it work?
You want to answer that, Chris? Chris is in module 3 and was talking a little bit about study habits. How do you learn the information about each remedy? Because everybody kind of finds their own way.
Yes. So for Materia Medica Study, I find it challenging as well. So when you're listening to the lecture of Willa talking about the remedy, and sometimes, yes, she does incorporate story into the remedy. But I basically take notes on the lecture, and then I pull out a lot of the keynotes and some of the more important things that I think are important about the remedy. And I personally like to just write everything down. And I write it down. I'll do this a couple times a week. I'll write it down on a piece of paper, study the piece of paper, and then write it down again, trying to memorize a little bit more, and then until I can actually write it down, writing most of the stuff that I've memorized down. That's how I do it, because that's how it helps me, because I was finding that I would study for the quiz, and then once the quiz was over, I would completely forget some of the remedies. So I needed to work on really getting it in my head. And I will say that doing clinics really helps that. Clinic has brought it all together for me. So I'm so grateful for the clinics, because that really helps us. It helps me get a really good picture for some of the remedies that come up for people. So.
Great, thank you. Marianne, do you have anything to add? I know you are also an excellent student, and Do you have any tips about how you learn remedies?
I think a really good way to study a remedy is to get creative. And if, for instance, Allium Cepa, I drew a picture of someone's face where all of the things that are happening to the person are happening on the side of the face that Allium Cepa is, and an onion on the side, and peaches, and like all this stuff, that the keynotes, the characteristics. What would you use Allium Cepa for? Being out in the spring, that kind of thing. And it's just around knowing that it's a remedy for hay fever. So you just get creative in designing your piece of paper. For something like bryonia, which you're going to use acutely and also for chronic. And it has so much more information. And I used an Excel spreadsheet for that and plopped all the keynotes and characteristics down, and it just took up an entire page. So every remedy, but I'll never forget bryonia, and I'll never forget Allium Cepa. So getting creative and getting I always have colored pencils with me, and just drawing whatever comes to mind. You don't have to be creative. You don't have to be talented, but I think that's the way to remember a remedy and to remember it well. It sticks in your mind, and you never forget it. So I think that's just one of the creative things I do.
Great, thank you. And this is kind of the advantage of the biweekly study groups also, is to be talking with other students about how they're learning the remedy. And one of the things we talk about in one of the early sessions is some people are more audio, some people are more visual, some people are more about the words, the way that Chris is describing with writing out the words. When I was a student, I was kind of along the line of Marianne, in that I would kind of diagram out the remedies and just make little symbols that meant something to me, and by seeing it visually. And I've had students that were massively talented cartoonist type people who did beautiful, publication worthy materia medica pictures. Some people do publish those things. But actually what works the best is when you do it yourself. And it doesn't matter, like Marianne said, it doesn't matter what it looks like. What matters is you're engaging your brain in a way that helps you to remember it. So great. Diana, did you have any other questions? Yeah, she's unmuted. Go ahead, Diana. I don't know why I'm not. Oh, now she's muted again. Hi, Diana. You're not muted now. Are you there? Oh, well, okay.
Hold on a second. I'm sorry. The Zoom is not working. I'm trying to call in and add. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I just had a question about the clinic. Is it actual clinic that you go to? Is there something live that you go in person?
That's a good question. It's actually online now. For a number of years, we've been doing it as an online clinic, which means you sign into Zoom just like you did, and you observe me taking the case, and then you have a chance to actually ask questions of the client. And then when the client has left, we do an analysis session. And then we have follow-up sessions on our special group, special private Yahoo group, where everyone gets a chance to discuss and analyze the case. Do you want to, Chris? Chris has been in a number of clinics. Do you want to say anything more about clinic and your clinical experiences? You did mention earlier something about it.
Sure. Clinic has been, because we do so much of the sort of academic learning the philosophy, learning from the lectures, taking notes from the lectures, and learning materia medica and the organon. But clinic is where it kind of brings it all together, and you get to actually see what it's like in real life to apply what you're learning into an actual situation. So I've learned so much from clinic. I love clinic. They're one of my favorite parts of the whole program, for sure. So I just learned so much, and you're also getting feedback from the other students because they see something in a different way. And then just kind of watching Willow work is amazing too. I mean, just kind of watch her take a case and guide the client through, letting their story unfold. It's an amazing learning experience.
And I love clinic because it's so exciting to see students blossom into homeopaths. And it happens at an amazing rate, actually. They just sort of jump in and start doing it, and their work is great. And I feel very inspired and excited by watching what happens. It's kind of very special to be able to meet in that way and have the extra time for discussion. I actually prefer doing the online version. I've been teaching clinics since the mid-90s, and the first decades were live clinics, but because we have this added luxury of having another week to continue to discuss it online and people submitting their ideas, it just becomes a much more multi-dimensional and enriched learning experience. So yeah, I do feel like it's a key point of the program. And of course, in any healing modality, clinical experience is so important. If you're just studying how to do it but not actually doing it, it's not really going to have that confidence to practice on your own. So Diana, did that answer you? And anything else?
I'm just wondering, it did. Thank you. That was very thorough. I'm just wondering, how long does clinic go on? Is it 1 week only and a few cases? Or is it for several months?
The way that we're handling it right now is that we're doing 5 sessions per season. For example, for winter clinic is coming up. We're going to do 5 Monday mornings. Each morning is about 2.5 hours long, and that includes taking the case and having our initial discussions. And then for the rest of that week, we continue to talk about it. So about every 3 or 4 months, we have a 1-month session where we're meeting once a week in the mornings.
Thank you.
Monday mornings, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. I hope that answers some questions and gives you an idea about what the Caduceus program is like. Feel free to contact us and check out the website. One of the things you might want to check out is to look at our graduate page and see what some of our graduates are doing with their Caduceus education. Look at the lectures. I also have a YouTube channel. There's an introduction to the organon on my YouTube channel. So there are a lot of different ways you can start to learn a little bit about homeopathy and Caduceus, and we look forward to having you join us sometime.
Thank you.
Okay.